The story begins by introducing the protagonist, a young woman living in a small conservative village where social expectations are strict and traditional roles dominate. She is kind-hearted, gentle, and intelligent, but unfortunately, her family and community have labeled her as infertile. Whether she has been unable to attract suitors or merely because she doesn't conform to conventional beauty standards, this label has unfairly defined her identity in the eyes of her relatives. Her family, instead of valuing her inner qualities, dismisses her, mocks her quietly, and treats her as an object of ridicule rather than as a beloved daughter. Her home life is marked by a mixture of affection and cruelty. While she may have a few family members who care about her well-being, the dominant voices are those that belittle her, often reminding her of her supposed shortcomings. The narrative emphasizes the emotional burden she carries, showing her quiet resilience and inner strength. Despite constant humiliation, she maintains a kind heart, showing compassion to others even when she herself is overlooked. This sets the stage for readers to empathize with her, establishing her as a character whose worth transcends the narrow judgments imposed upon her by her family and society. The village itself reflects a world that values appearances, wealth, and social status above personal virtues. The protagonist's family is not uniquely cruel. They are products of this environment, but their actions are magnified by their personal disdain for her. They treat her as a source of amusement, often whispering among themselves about her lack of prospects and making subtle jokes at her expense. These dynamics highlight the social pressures on women to marry, have children, and conform to idealized standards of beauty. Her perceived infertility becomes a symbol not just of physical inability, but of the stigma she faces in a society that measures women by narrow, superficial criteria. Despite these challenges, the protagonist is portrayed as resilient and quietly introspective. She has developed a sense of dignity that is invisible to her family, finding solace in small joys, perhaps caring for animals, helping aging in creative or practical skills. These glimpses into her life hint at her potential, foreshadowing that her worth is far greater than the ridicule she endures. Through her thoughts and feelings, readers can sense a growing strength and self-awareness that will guide her in the coming trials. It also establishes a tone of tension and anticipation. The audience understands that her family's attitude is cruel, yet they are unaware of what events are about to unfold. This juxtaposition of her vulnerability and her hidden strength creates emotional investment, as readers begin to hope that her life will soon change for the better. The stage is set for the arrival of a catalyst, someone who will recognize her true value without revealing too much about the outcome. In essence, paints a vivid picture of a young woman marginalized by her own family, struggling under social and familial pressures yet quietly nurturing qualities of kindness, resilience, and intelligence. Her story begins in hardship, but the narrative foreshadows the transformation to come. The initial portrayal of her life ensures that readers will root for her, empathize with her struggles, and become deeply invested in her journey toward respect, love, and vindication. The story's second part introduces the figure of the rancher, a wealthy, influential, and respected man from outside the village. Unlike the people in the village, he is known not only for his wealth, but also for his open-mindedness, generosity, and fairness. His reputation precedes him. He is admired for the way he treats people, valuing character and integrity over superficial qualities like status or beauty. This contrast between the rancher and the villagers immediately sets him up as a potential agent of change in the protagonist's life. The arrival of the rancher creates a stir within the village. For a small, close-knit community, news of a rich and kind outsider is always exciting. Villagers speculate about his intentions, his character, and whether he might marry someone from among them. This anticipation highlights the social structure of the village. where marriage is not merely a personal union but also a marker of status, alliances, and opportunity. The rancher's presence is therefore both intriguing and potentially transformative for anyone he favors. The family of the protagonist, always quick to seize a chance for amusement or self-interest, begins to view the rancher's visit as an opportunity. They immediately see the potential to play a cruel joke on their daughter, sending her as a candidate for marriage despite knowing that she is considered unmarriageable by their standards. The family's perspective in this moment is revealing. They are opportunistic, selfish, and lacking in empathy, more concerned with their own entertainment than with the emotional consequences for their daughter. Their plan is sly and calculated. They hope to embarrass her in front of someone they believe will reject her. The protagonist herself is aware of the impending visit. She experiences a mixture of anxiety, apprehension, and quiet dread. She has grown accustomed to being undervalued and dismissed, so the thought of being sent into a situation orchestrated by her family fills her with a sense of powerlessness. Yet beneath her fear, there is a spark of resilience. Even in the face of mockery and manipulation, she carries herself with dignity, hinting at the inner strength that will become crucial as the story unfolds. It also serves to contrast the protagonist's world with that of the rancher. While the village is steeped in judgment, gossip, and superficial assessments of worth, the rancher represents a different set of values, fairness, discernment, and the ability to look beyond appearances. This sets the stage for their eventual meeting, establishing him as someone who can recognize the protagonist as true qualities and provide the catalyst for her transformation. Additionally, the rancher's arrival begins to heighten the tension in the narrative. Readers now anticipate how the encounter between him and the daughter will unfold. Will he fall for the trap laid by her family, or will he see through the superficial labels and recognize her inner worth? This part builds suspense while deepening the emotional stakes, emphasizing the protagonist's vulnerability and the family's cruelty. Ultimately, it is about opportunity and contrast. The rancher's presence introduces the possibility of change, while the family's intentions reveal the ongoing adversity the protagonist must navigate. The tension between her marginalized position and the promise of recognition creates a compelling narrative drive. It is in this moment, the arrival of a respected outsider, that the story begins to pivot from despair toward the transformative journey that will define the protagonist as path. It delves into the machinations of the protagonist's family, revealing the full extent of their cruelty and the scheming nature behind their plan to send her to the rancher. By now, readers are aware of the daughter's marginalized position within the household, and this section highlights how her family manipulates that vulnerability for their own amusement. The family, particularly the older relatives or those who dominate household decisions, see the rancher's arrival as an opportunity for a prank. They frame the idea as a joke, convincing themselves that it is harmless fun when in reality it is designed to humiliate the daughter. They decide to present her as a potential bride to the rancher, fully aware of her so-called infertility and social inadequacies, anticipating that he will reject her. Their amusement is rooted in cruelty. They delight in imagining her embarrassment, the awkwardness she will face, and the supposed confirmation of her inadequacy. The narrative in this part emphasizes the psychological weight of the family's actions on the protagonist. She is acutely aware that she is being treated as a tool for the family's entertainment. Though she feels powerless, the story carefully explores her inner world, her fear, sadness, and simmering frustration. She knows she is being mocked, yet she does not outwardly rebel, reflecting her habit of enduring mistreatment quietly. This passive suffering builds reader empathy and reinforces the protagonist's resilience and patience, qualities that will later be crucial in her eventual transformation. As the plan takes shape, the family meticulously orchestrates the details. They discuss what she should say, how she should behave, and even exaggerate her flaws in their descriptions to the rancher, aiming to make the prank more effective. The family's conversations are laced with mockery, gossip, and patronizing remarks, creating a vivid picture of their cruelty. At the same time, these preparations highlight their own short-sightedness. They underestimate the daughter's intelligence, dignity, and inner strength. The contrast between their malicious intentions and her silent fortitude sets up dramatic irony, keeping the reader engaged and anticipating how the plan might backfire. Meanwhile, the protagonist contemplates her impending journey. She experiences a mix of anxiety and cautious hope. On one hand, she fears public humiliation and anticipates rejection, fully aware that her family's plan could expose her to ridicule in front of an outsider. On the other hand, there is a quiet curiosity and an instinctive hope that perhaps, just perhaps, she might encounter someone who sees beyond her supposed shortcomings. This internal conflict deepens her characterization, showing that even in the face of adversity, she is capable of courage and discernment. It also serves to escalate tension in the story. The audience understands the high stakes. The daughter is being sent into an unfamiliar environment where her dignity is at risk, while the family's malicious intentions loom over every interaction. The narrative hints at the possibility of unexpected outcomes, signaling that the daughter's qualities, her kindness, intelligence, and patience may turn what seems like a humiliating situation into a transformative opportunity. In essence, this part of the story emphasizes the stark contrast between malice and virtue. The family represents judgment, cruelty, and superficiality, while the protagonist embodies resilience, humility, and quiet strength. Their plan, meant to belittle her, inadvertently sets the stage for her eventual empowerment, growth, and vindication. This tension between intention and outcome becomes the driving force of the narrative, keeping readers emotionally invested and eager to see how the daughter will navigate the challenges ahead. It focuses on the protagonist's journey from her home village to the rancher's estate, a pivotal moment in the story where her physical journey mirrors an emotional and psychological transition. This section deepens her character, emphasizing her resilience, introspection, and the quiet courage she carries despite the cruelty of her family. The journey begins with a mixture of anxiety and resignation. The daughter is acutely aware of her family's devious plan and understands the potential for humiliation. The mere thought of being presented to the rancher as a joke weighs heavily on her, filling her with fear of rejection, shame, and the possibility of public embarrassment. She reflects on the harshness of her family's treatment, the label of infertile that has haunted her, and the years of dismissal she has endured. Yet, within this fear, there is also a spark of determination and instinctive hope that she might encounter someone who can see beyond superficial judgments. The physical journey itself is described in a way that emphasizes both the distance she must travel and the emotional weight she carries. Each mile brings her further from the familiarity of her village and closer to the unknown, symbolizing a crossing from her old life of limitation and ridicule into a space where transformation is possible. Along the way, the narrative may highlight moments of reflection. She notices the beauty of the landscape, interacts kindly with strangers, or engages in small acts of care for animals or the environment. These moments reinforce her inherent goodness, showing that even under stress and humiliation, she maintains empathy, humility, and grace. During the journey, the story explores her inner dialogue in depth. She contemplates her worth, questioning whether she deserves kindness or respect, yet she simultaneously reaffirms her belief in her own dignity. This introspection is crucial, as it foreshadows her ability to recognize genuine care and affection when she meets the rancher. Her reflections may also include memories of her family's cruelty, which, while painful, strengthen her resolve. Readers are invited into her psyche, feeling both her vulnerability and the quiet fortitude that will sustain her through the challenges ahead. The journey also serves as a transitional narrative device. It separates the oppressive environment of her home from the new possibilities represented by the ranch. The physical act of traveling becomes symbolic of leaving behind the limitations imposed by her family's judgments. Every step forward is a step toward autonomy, self-discovery, and the potential for love and recognition that her village has denied her. Along the way, small challenges or interactions with others may test her patience, humility, and character. Perhaps she encounters strangers who are indifferent or even dismissive, reinforcing her awareness of societal biases, or she faces practical difficulties such as rough terrain or weather, which she overcomes with perseverance. These trials subtly prepare her for the emotional challenges she will face at the ranch while simultaneously showcasing her resilience and adaptability. By the end, the protagonist has not only physically approached the rancheress estate, but has also begun an emotional transformation. The journey highlights her inner strength, courage, and capacity for hope, setting the stage for the crucial encounter with the rancher. She arrives at the ranch no longer just as a timid, marginalized daughter, but as a quietly strong, reflective young woman ready to navigate the unknown. In essence, this part of the story blends physical travel with emotional development, emphasizing resilience, introspection, and the first glimmers of personal empowerment. The journey to the ranch marks a turning point. It is a literal and symbolic passage from oppression and ridicule toward self-discovery, dignity, and the potential for life-changing transformation. The story focuses on the first encounter between the protagonist and the rancher, a pivotal moment where the trajectory of her life begins to shift. This scene is central to the narrative because it introduces the dynamic that will transform her from a marginalized and ridiculed young woman into someone recognized, valued, and eventually loved. The meeting begins with a mixture of tension, anticipation, and apprehension. The daughter, arriving at the rancher's estate after her long journey, feels nervous and self-conscious. She is acutely aware of her family's cruel intentions and fears humiliation, rejection, or ridicule at the hands of someone who is both powerful and outside her familiar social environment. Her heart races as she approaches the rancher, every step weighted with anxiety in the hope that perhaps this encounter will not follow the pattern of judgment she has always known. The rancher, on the other hand, is portrayed as observant, courteous, and composed. He senses her unease immediately but does not exploit it. Instead, he treats her with respect and kindness, greeting her warmly and making her feel acknowledged rather than scrutinized. This initial interaction establishes a stark contrast between his character and that of her family. While they have always belittled her, the rancher looks beyond superficial labels and is genuinely curious about her as a person. During their conversation, the rancher notices subtle qualities in the protagonist that her family has ignored or dismissed. He observes her quiet confidence, her sincerity, and her gentle manner of speaking. Even though she is shy and cautious, there is an undeniable intelligence and dignity in the way she responds, and he begins to see the depth of her character. This recognition is crucial for the narrative. It signals to the reader that she is not defined by the cruel label her family has imposed upon her. The daughter, in turn, is surprised by the rancher's genuine interest and courtesy. She is unaccustomed to being treated with such respect and attention, and her initial apprehension gradually gives way to cautious hope. The story emphasizes her inner reactions. She feels a mix of relief, curiosity, and even a quiet sense of empowerment as she realizes that her worth is being acknowledged by someone who truly matters. This moment plants the seeds of mutual respect and lays the groundwork for deeper emotional connection in the following parts. The narrative also explores the subtleties of social dynamics during this meeting. While her family intended the situation to be humiliating, the rancher's perceptiveness allows him to see through the superficial assumptions. He does not treat her as an object of amusement, but engages her in meaningful conversation, perhaps asking about her life, her thoughts, or her perspective on simple but revealing matters. These exchanges highlight the contrast between those who judge by appearances and those who judge by character. It is significant because it establishes a turning point in the story, the moment where the protagonist moves from being a passive victim of ridicule to someone who begins to experience recognition and validation. The rancher becomes a symbol of fairness, respect, and the possibility of love, challenging the narrative imposed by her family. This encounter sets the emotional tone for the coming chapters, in which their relationship will develop and the daughter's hidden strengths will gradually come to the forefront. In essence, it highlights the themes of perception versus reality, dignity in the face of prejudice, and the transformative power of genuine recognition. The first meeting between the daughter and the rancher is not merely a plot device. It is a moment of emotional awakening, establishing hope and the possibility of a new life that contrasts sharply with the neglect and mockery she has endured for years. Part 6 explores the protagonist's adaptation to life at the ranch, a phase of the story where her character begins to flourish and the relationship between her and the rancher deepens. This section is crucial because it demonstrates how a change in environment, coupled with respect and kindness, allows her hidden qualities, patience, intelligence, and compassion to shine. Upon arriving at the ranch, the daughter experiences a mix of wonder, apprehension, and cautious optimism. Everything is new. The vastness of the land, the bustling activities of the ranch, the animals, and the routines of a household vastly different from her village. Initially, she feels out of place, aware of her own insecurities and the lingering fear of being judged. However, the rancher's continued warmth and respectful treatment slowly ease her anxiety. She realizes that, unlike her family, he does not define her by her appearance, her supposed infertility, or her social standing. As days pass, she begins to take part in the daily life of the ranch. She helps with chores, assists with managing animals, and observes the operations, all while displaying diligence, intelligence, and an eagerness to learn. These activities reveal her practical skills and her innate ability to care for others, both human and animal. Even small gestures, feeding animals gently, organizing tasks thoughtfully, or helping staff show her attention to detail, patience, and nurturing nature. Through these moments, the reader sees her inner strength and capability, which had been overlooked by her family for so long. Her interactions with the rancher during this period are subtle yet profound. He observes her abilities, her thoughtfulness, and the humility with which she performs her duties. They begin to engage in deeper conversations, discovering shared values, perspectives, and a mutual respect that goes beyond surface-level attraction. The rancher starts appreciating her not just for her compliance or courtesy, but for her intelligence, moral integrity, and kindness. These moments lay the foundation for emotional intimacy and foreshadow the eventual romantic bond. The protagonist also experiences personal growth in this part. Being in an environment that values her contributions allows her to gain confidence and self-assurance. She begins to recognize that her worth is not tied to her family's cruel judgments, societal labels, or expectations. This self-awareness becomes a transformative force, giving her the courage to act authentically and the grace to navigate complex social situations at the ranch. Readers witness her evolution from a timid, marginalized young woman to someone quietly powerful, grounded in her own dignity and self-respect. It also highlights the stark contrast between the ranch environment and her life back home. The ranch is a space of respect, learning, and growth, while her village had been filled with mockery and superficial judgment. This juxtaposition reinforces the story's broader themes: the consequences of cruelty, the power of kindness, and the idea that true recognition comes from those who see and appreciate inner qualities rather than outward appearances. Finally, life at the ranch begins to reveal small hints of emotional connection and mutual admiration between her and the rancher. These are not overtly romantic yet, but subtle gestures, a thoughtful word, a shared smile, or recognition of her efforts plant seeds of trust and budding affection. The narrative tension remains, while the family's mockery still looms in the background. The rancher's presence offers a path toward validation, acceptance, and eventual fulfillment. In essence, serves as the stage for growth, discovery, and subtle romance. It emphasizes that nurturing environments can bring out latent strengths, and that respect and kindness can transform a person's sense of self-worth. The protagonist's life at the ranch is no longer defined by humiliation or ridicule. Instead, it becomes a space where her virtues are recognized and where the seeds of love and transformation begin to take root. The story shifts focus back to the protagonist's family, exploring their reaction to her time at the ranch and how their continuing mockery contrasts sharply with the respect and validation she experiences there. This section is important because it heightens narrative tension, reinforces the protagonist's emotional growth, and sets up the eventual vindication that will occur later in the story. While the daughter is quietly thriving at the ranch, word reaches her family about her stay with the wealthy rancher. True to form, instead of expressing curiosity or pride, they treat it as an opportunity for gossip and derision. Some family members openly ridicule her, laughing at the idea that she could be taken seriously as a potential bride or companion for someone of the rancher's stature. They perpetuate the same narrative of infertility and social inadequacy, convinced that the rancher will ultimately reject her and confirm their long-held assumptions. The story emphasizes their cruelty through both dialogue and internal monologues, revealing a mixture of superiority, judgment, and obliviousness to their own pettiness. They see themselves as clever, imagining a grand spectacle of humiliation for the daughter, not realizing that their mockery is shallow and that they are blind to her true qualities. This behavior underscores one of the central themes of the story, that judgment rooted in superficial standards often blinds people to genuine worth and character. For the protagonist, learning of her family's continued mockery is painful, but also transformative. She is aware that her relatives are still trying to diminish her, yet she is no longer entirely dependent on their approval for her sense of self-worth. The experiences she has had at the ranch working diligently, being treated with respect, and recognized for her talents and character have begun to build her confidence and inner strength. She responds internally with a quiet resolve rather than anger or despair, demonstrating maturity and emotional resilience. This part also explores the contrast between perception and reality. The family believes the daughter remains vulnerable, powerless, and socially inferior. In reality, she is growing, thriving, and gaining recognition in a setting that values her for who she truly is. This dramatic irony adds depth to the narrative, allowing readers to anticipate the eventual reversal of fortune when her family is forced to confront the consequences of their cruelty. The tension created by this gap between perception and reality keeps the audience engaged, rooting for her eventual vindication. Additionally, reinforces the protagonist's moral compass. Despite her family's ongoing derision, she does not stoop to retaliate or mock them in return. Instead, she maintains her dignity, kindness, and humility, further highlighting the disparity between her virtuous character and their pettiness. This contrast sets up a satisfying emotional payoff later in the story when the consequences of her family's mockery become apparent. By the end of this section, the story has established several key dynamics: the protagonist's growth and empowerment, the rancher's recognition of her worth, and the family's continuing blindness to her true value. These elements heighten anticipation for the next stages of the narrative, particularly the deepening bond between the protagonist and the rancher, and the eventual turning point that will challenge the family's assumptions. In essence, this serves as both a tension-building and character-defining chapter. It emphasizes the persistence of cruelty and judgment in the protagonist's past while showcasing the strength, patience, and dignity she has cultivated. The continued mockery of her family, rather than diminishing her, sets the stage for her ultimate triumph and underscores the story as moral. True worth cannot be defined by the narrow and cruel judgments of others. The climactic turning point of the story, where the protagonist's quiet perseverance and moral integrity come to full fruition. After spending significant time at the ranch, gaining respect, confidence, and emotional fulfillment, she returns to her family, but this time not alone. She brings with her a child, symbolizing love, life, and the overturning of the family's cruel assumptions. This revelation shocks both the characters and the audience, delivering emotional impact and thematic closure. The narrative builds tension leading up to her return. Her family, still steeped in arrogance and mockery, has likely assumed that the rancher rejected her or that she failed in her time away. They expect to continue their derision, perhaps even hoping for public humiliation to reinforce their perception of her as inadequate. Their ignorance of her growth and success heightens the dramatic irony. The audience, aware of her accomplishments and the respect she has earned, anticipates the inevitable reversal of fortune. Upon her arrival, the protagonist carries herself with quiet dignity and confidence. Her demeanor signals transformation. She is no longer timid, uncertain, or defined by the label of infertile. She has been validated in ways her family could never provide through meaningful work, recognition, respect, and love. The child she holds serves as a tangible symbol of the life and possibilities that the family had dismissed as impossible. This moment is both literal and symbolic. She returns triumphant, having proven her worth on her own terms, defying the shallow expectations of her relatives. The family's reaction is a mix of shock, disbelief, and humiliation. Their plan, intended to mock her, has completely backfired. The child represents the tangible proof of her capability, love, and fertility, directly contradicting the cruel narrative they perpetuated for years. This confrontation forces them to face their own pettiness, their superficial judgment, and the consequences of underestimating the daughter they sought to ridicule. The story emphasizes their internal reactions. Some may feel guilt, some envy, and some a humbled recognition of their wrongs, highlighting the moral lesson that cruelty and mockery often rebound on those who practice them. For the protagonist, this return is also emotionally significant. It is a moment of self-affirmation and empowerment. She demonstrates grace and maturity, choosing not to respond to her family's shock with anger or vindictiveness. Instead, her presence and the child she carries speak louder than words, showcasing the rewards of patience, dignity, and virtue. This part of the story emphasizes that true triumph is not about revenge, but about living authentically and allowing success, happiness, and love to speak for themselves. Her relationship with the rancher is subtly highlighted in this moment as well. Though the narrative may not yet explore overt declarations of love, the child and the life she has built at the ranch symbolize their bond and shared values. It signals that she has not only found personal fulfillment, but also a partner who respects, admires, and cherishes her, contrasting sharply with the family's superficial and judgmental behavior. In essence, serves as the emotional and narrative climax. The protagonist's return with the child resolves the tension created by her family's cruelty, rewards her patience and virtue, and underscores the story's central themes: the triumph of inner worth over superficial judgment, the transformative power of respect and kindness, and the fulfillment that comes from love, recognition, and resilience. The dramatic revelation ensures that readers experience both catharsis and moral satisfaction, witnessing the reversal of fortune that validates the protagonist's journey. Part 10 serves as the conclusion of the story, bringing emotional closure, moral resolution, and a sense of justice for the protagonist. After years of ridicule, marginalization, and emotional neglect by her own family, she emerges not only vindicated but also empowered, loved, and fulfilled. This section ties together the narrative threads of personal growth, moral triumph, and social reversal, leaving the audience with a satisfying resolution. The protagonist's return to her village with the child marks a definitive turning point. Her family, who had plotted to humiliate her and perpetuated the belief that she was infertile and inadequate, are confronted with undeniable evidence of their misjudgment. Their surprise and shame are compounded by the child, a living testament to her worth, resilience, and the love she has cultivated with the rancher. The narrative emphasizes their emotional reactions: shock, disbelief, perhaps even guilt or envy, as they realize the depth of their cruelty and the magnitude of their misjudgment. For the protagonist, this moment is not about revenge. She exhibits grace, dignity, and self-respect, allowing her success and fulfillment to speak louder than any words. Her triumph lies in her ability to rise above the mockery, proving that inner worth, patience, and perseverance are far more powerful than superficial judgment or malice. The narrative highlights her emotional evolution, from a marginalized, timid girl to a confident, self-assured woman who has earned love, respect, and happiness on her own terms. This transformation is central to the story's message of empowerment. The resolution also reinforces the significance of the rancher's role. He is not merely a romantic interest, but a symbol of fairness, discernment, and appreciation for character over appearance. Their bond, now solidified through mutual respect, shared experiences, and the child they bring into the world, demonstrates that love and recognition flourish in environments of respect and kindness. The rancher's presence validates her worth, contrasting sharply with her family's persistent cruelty, and serves as a narrative device to underscore the story's moral. Genuine recognition cannot be dictated by societal prejudice or shallow judgments. The story then broadens its moral lens. Her family's reaction, ranging from stunned silence to quiet introspection, serves as a cautionary example. Their earlier mockery is rendered powerless in the face of her success and happiness. This reversal of fortune emphasizes justice. The daughter's patience, humility, and virtue are rewarded, while the family's cruelty and arrogance are exposed. It demonstrates the principle that malice, ridicule, and superficial judgment ultimately fail when confronted by resilience, kindness, and authentic capability. Additionally, provides emotional closure by highlighting the daughter's fulfillment beyond mere social vindication. She has found a supportive partner in the rancher, a loving child, and a life where her abilities and character are respected. Her personal growth is now complete. She has transitioned from a marginalized figure into a woman of confidence, dignity, and purpose. The narrative reinforces that true happiness comes not from external validation alone, but from environments where respect, love, and recognition are genuinely given and earned. In essence, it resolves all major narrative arcs. The protagonist achieves triumph over adversity. Her family faces the consequences of their cruelty, and justice is served without bitterness or revenge. The story concludes with a celebration of personal integrity, resilience, and the transformative power of respect and love, leaving readers with both moral satisfaction and emotional resonance. It is a powerful affirmation of the story's central themes: the triumph of character over superficial judgment, the rewards of patience and virtue, and the ultimate victory of dignity and love over cruelty and prejudice.